I mean, I'm watching it right now and it seems fine, so...
Alright, ready when you are, Caneras?
Okay.
Do you want me to count you down, or you to count me down?
Let me get to the title screen and then you can count me down.
Okay.
By the way, I added Twonkies as a donation goal. I expect to see this shit filled.
Okay. Ready whenever.
3, 2, 1, go.
I really hope that actually registered the file selects. Otherwise, we might have to restart, or I'll just be down by like 15 or 20 seconds.
I can restart the time if you want.
Awful logo for this game. Title.
Yeah, let's redo the countdown.
Okay.
I guess it didn't register my button press or something. Maybe I'm just bad.
So tell me when you're ready.
Okay, ready.
3, 2, 1, go.
Alright, I actually heard the file select sound, so we should be good. But yeah, this is Jet Force Gemini, or Star Twins, as it's known in Japan. It came out 1999. It actually, December 1st was the anniversary of it coming out in Japan. It actually came out a little bit after the English version, as most Rare games do. So this is actually a newer version of the game than the US version. So there's a couple changes that they made that actually make it a little bit faster for reasons different than most Japanese games are faster. The text boxes do have like fewer characters because Japanese usually has less characters than more. Lines of more text boxes and just general dialogue in the game in the Japanese version. So for that reason, it's not actually faster. The only thing that makes it beneficial to play on this version is that you're able to skip a couple cutscenes if you access a level from the map screen in the pause menu versus the either character select screen or the by like just loading into your ship and taking off somewhere. So for the first hour and a half or so of the run, there's going to be cutscenes between every level, and then for the last about 2 hours, there's not nearly as many, as there's only a couple places where we can't get to the level through the map screen. But if you've never played Jet Force Gemini or Star Twins and have no idea what it's about, this general cutscene kind of gives you some tips on the main aspects of the game. We're mostly just going to be shooting a bunch of bugs, mostly ants, and some flying things, and collecting a bunch of little bears that they call tribals. You have to collect it's either 283 or 287 of them in the game to reach the last level and fight the final boss. You find out about halfway through a speedrun and probably about 20% of a normal playthrough's way through the game. You find out that you have to save them all to get a spaceship part that takes you to the last level, or that is for a ship that takes you to the last level. And unfortunately, they can be killed either by you or by enemies, and some of them are really stupid and run into enemy fire, enemy grenades, thinking that it's good for them. But most of the movement in this game is done through strafe running, so I'm moving both horizontally and, or not horizontally, but left and right and forward, and it actually gives me more, or faster movement speed than if I were to just run normally. And there's two ways of doing it. One way is the way that I'm doing it now, where I use the control stick as well as either C left or C right. And then the other way is by doing it with manual targeting. Each one kind of has its own benefits as well as... Oh my gosh, that grenade. Each one has its benefits or its drawbacks. Doing it while aiming, you're able to see where you're going a lot better. However, you actually have to target things, whereas if you are strafe running without aiming, and I'm going to be doing a death warp here. Hopefully this drone doesn't get shot by his friend. Okay. He did end up getting shot, but he lived. So, the auto aim in this game is probably your best friend, as sometimes bullets will shoot out of your gun at a 90-degree angle to shoot a drone in the head, whereas if you were manually targeting, you would have to actually turn the character around to make the same shot. And we're going to be kind of just running through this hub part of the level, jumping over these vines, because a few of them are actually invisible walls instead of just doodads. And have our actual first conversation with this guy after shooting him a few times. And I managed to get a text skip here. Normally he has about 3 or 4 boxes of dialogue, but if you hit A on the frame that he starts talking to you, it just skips all the text and goes immediately to the end, where the NPC either gives you an item or unlocks a cutscene or something. In this case, he gave us the red key, which lets us get into this room to get the machine gun. And then just death warp out of here. There's only about 5 guns that we use throughout the entire run. Machine gun is usually the second gun that everyone gets after the pistol. The other 2 that everyone gets are tri-rockets and homing missiles, and then one of the character has to get a sniper rifle. I was hoping to get an ammo pickup for my machine gun there. You can pick up enemy weapons, and they'll give you ammo depending on which gun you have selected. If you have the pistol equipped, it'll give you pistol ammo, and if you have the machine gun equipped, or any other weapon equipped, it'll give you machine gun ammo. And we very rarely need ammo for the pistol, as you're given a lot of it, and it's one of the more useless weapons. So sometimes I'll be running past all the enemies in a room, and then sometimes I'll be killing them all. There's specific triggers for the doors to open that require you to either kill certain enemies or all of them in the room. So in that room I only had to kill the batch of flying ones that came out from behind the door. There is like a sweet spot in that room, the last one for this level, where if you... I don't know if it's like frame perfect or if it's just something that randomly happens, but you can have a bullet just like hit right where they spawn, and you just hear like a really loud click noise, and then they're not there anymore. Like you kill every single one of them pretty much immediately. most of the weapons in this game, like they have some really cool ideas for creative weapons, but unfortunately most of them are useless aside from tri-rockets and homing missiles and the machine gun. I think there's 15 total, so we get about a third. And one of the weapons, as I saw mentioned, is the fish food, which is obviously the best weapon in the game, and unfortunately is not a part of an any percent speed run. But its sole purpose is exactly what you would think. There's a couple fish in some of the ponds in the game, and you can actually like feed them. And I think if you throw grenades at the fish as well, they'll swim towards it like it's food. So the main thing going on in this level is that there's switches in every room that we need to be shooting that unlock jail cells at different parts of the level. I don't know where this last guy is.
George's donation is $30 for remove head crab, and he has been banned from the chat.
Word.
So there's 3 switches in this room and then 2 in the next one. And then there's actually 1 switch that's directly in front of a cell door. And despite this room being full of enemies, kind of hidden throughout it, the only one that matter are those flying drones, flying drones that circle around the room. On like 0 risk. And really the only thing that makes this, or at least the start of this level, difficult for casual players or like people who aren't familiar with like which enemies actually trigger life force doors that are required, like that have that lock you out until you kill all of the enemies in the area. You're probably going to use like all of your ammo before reaching the drones that actually matter. And so the game's basically banking on you just like not having either machine gun ammo or tri-rockets to actually kill everything. But if you know which drones you actually have to kill, you can basically just like run straight through the level without having to worry about anything. And I grabbed a pair of pants out of the tree because the NPC that we meet in this...
What bit rate are you streaming at right now?
3500.
Try lowering that to like 2000. I think my internet, it's because on my end, is having trouble with that.
Okay. Okay, it should be to 2000 now. But yeah, so we traded the pair of pants to that guy for a crowbar because somehow that's like a fair deal. I also don't know how his pants managed to get put up in that tree, and I'm a little bit afraid to ask, so we're just gonna leave him be until we have to come back to this level later in the game, and we come to find out that he never actually puts his pants on, so I think he just wanted the security of knowing where they are. And that's the first of 2 death warps that I'll be doing in this segment. You get basically like 3 lives at the start of each major area, Oops. Supposed to blow that up. I was just like waiting for it to open. And if you die 3 times, then you basically restart the level entirely instead of just respawning in whichever room you are, like after the most recent loading zone. And all of the enemies will reset, and the tribals that you've saved will reset. So it's important to not actually die 3 times. I have occasionally like forgotten that I died accidentally when doing several death warps and run into the mistake of resetting the level on accident. So this is Floyd. He's a robot that's going to fly around us for the rest of the game. If you are playing with the second player, someone can take control of him. And he basically shoots double pistols and has unlimited ammo, so makes for a very valuable resource. I didn't get them all. And this is kind of the first, like, boss level. Who is still alive? Okay, so I have quite a bit of health here, so I'm going to need to probably use at least 2 tri-rockets to do this death warp, which should be fine. As I should only need 2 for this segment. There is a category that uses Floyd quite a bit. He shows up a lot in low percent, as you're basically using him instead of any of your actual weapons. But it does also make it to where you're having to play 1 person, 2 controllers for the entirety of a run.
I just looked through old Humble Bundle stuff from that I have, and I have a Steam key for Roller Coaster Tycoon Deluxe. I guess next donation of $10 or more, you can have that.
Yeah, I got Planet Coaster on Steam a couple days after it came out, and ended up just starting playing the old Roller Coaster Tycoon games instead, because I like the isometric and like simplicity of it versus especially Planet Coaster, like everything's customizable and it's just sandbox. So
The art style of Roller Coaster Tycoon 1 and 2 is really good.
Yeah, I really like how you can progress, especially the first one, like you can progress through it and beat all of the parks without relying too much on like really good park management or making really good custom rides. But if you want to like add a lot of depth to your parks and make like custom rides that are ridiculous and like overlap with each other, it's still like an option that's available to you. Whereas the newer games, like you have to keep up with a lot more stuff just by default. But this boss, his name is Fet Bub, and he has very, like, all of the boss fights have very consistent cycles. And it's basically just shoot the vulnerable spot as soon as it opens. This game's also like really violent for an N64, especially for like a game that seems like it's oriented towards kids. Like there's a lot of scenes with really big blood splatters, like this one. And speaking of blood splatters, I'm actually going to turn Rainbow Blood on. Okay, so we're basically done with Juno for the next hour or so.
Bryce here hosting us. He'll be running Smash TV in like, what, 10, 12 hours? Something like that?
So is there a date or place set up for NASA next year? Or is it still in the works? Or is it top secret?
We know it's going to be in May. I asked like the hotel for the West, which is one we're probably going to go with because their prices were for the conference room was way less, and they couldn't do it early June, so it's probably going to be the second or third week of May, whichever one is cheaper.
But yeah, if anyone's thinking about submitting runs and hasn't been to a live marathon before or don't know if they want to make the trip, it is definitely worth it. I ended up driving from Texas to Chicago this May. Hated the drive, but really enjoyed like the weekend that I get to spend up there.
Like crap, Texas to Chicago, that's a long drive.
Yeah, I think it was like 14, 15 hours. I downloaded a couple audiobooks and just like listened to the entire novels the way up because it took so long. Okay, so these guys normally will start running off in random directions. I got kind of lucky in that they just stood still. The only ones that matter are the 3 that are on the ground floor. The rest of these guys just kind of get in your way as you run up the platform. And I just need to make sure that I grab this ammo crate. And you can get like boosts off of colliding with enemies, depending on how you actually like come into contact with them. The dog character is probably the one that gets the most benefit from it, because sometimes he can just like run in between their legs and the pressure like just shoots them forward. Oh, someone mentioned gas prices in other countries. I went on a road trip through Canada, driving from Texas several years ago, and when we went to miles per or in gallons, and I think gas in the U.S. at that point was like $3 a gallon, and in Canada it was like $1.10 or $1.15 per liter, and I just figured it was $1.10 a gallon. The gas is so cheap, and then I filled up, and it was way more expensive than I thought it was going to be, and then realized that I'm an idiot and didn't pay attention. The way that doing basically the only sequence break in the game, or in the run, at least in this category, where I went through a door that's at the start of the level that requires you to have a key. Explains that if I show up to this planet with a lot of money, he'll sell me a tri-rocket launcher. So now I'm going through the level, grabbing bars of gold, and I'll trade those for and for some reason when they designed this level they decided to just make it like a wide open field without any enemies in it that you just run across. Here's our friend. He kind of just like throws up the tri-rockets onto you. Unfortunately, like as
It looks like your stream is stuttering a little on my end.
Yeah, I noticed that a little bit too.
I'm not sure.
But unfortunately,
If there's any.
Yeah, there will be
1500.
a cutscene going into the boss. What the heck? There she goes. Okay, there will be a pretty long cutscene going into the boss fight on the next level. Normally when you open up the character will pull out their pistol and like shoot a corner of the box, and that's what causes it to open. But if you mash A like right as you're making contact with it, the box immediately, and it saves about 3 seconds every time you do it. But it's really difficult to actually anticipate happening. And hopefully I can turn around before these guys take off. Sometimes enemies will stand and shoot at you, and then other times that previous room is one where they will always just run away.
Yeah, try lowering the bitrate to like 1,000 next chance you get.
Okay. This next cutscene. And there's little cocoons that hang from the ceiling in this level, and I can actually get a pressure boost off of this last one. That kind of shoots me forward. One unit of health. Setting. Oh wow, he just like exploded. Okay, let's see if that helps.
Okay, cool.
So ideally, I just want to run around this room with the tri-rocket launchers, but since my health is really low, that's not much of an option. But I picked up a health capacity increaser. I don't really know how to describe it, but I got a item that increases the amount of health that I have. And it also gives you max health, so should be good for the rest of this level, assuming I don't just blow myself up. Okay, for some reason he really did not want to die. Sometimes the drones will just like lay down on the ground and writhe around for a little while instead of actually dying. And if they are the type of drone that has a shield, the barrier provided by the shield like stays over them until they actually die. This next room is one of the places where this character not being able to grab ledges very well kind of comes into play, because this is supposed to be kind of a platforming puzzle, but with strafe running, we can actually skip the majority of it and just go to the next room. For some of these first few levels, I don't collect the tribals because there's some that I can't actually reach until later in the run. And this is one such level, so we'll be coming back here with a different character that can access everything towards the end of the run. And then I blew myself up there so that I can get full health running across this area, because the amount that I had was probably going to get me killed. And it also means that I don't have to blow myself up to respawn here for full health before the boss fight. I just have to get ammo and start the second fight. I've never really understood why this character thinks it's a good idea to get onto this platform when she sees two enemy soldiers in a control room, and it's a platform that's hovering over just a giant tunnel of lava. But we end up on it, and somehow a giant fat ass like queen ant sneaks up on us. By waddling up to us very slowly. Also, I think that the fact that they use pig sound effects for the enemies, I think, is a good touch. I never associated pigs with ants, but it fits. Hey, thanks for the good luck, Metaz. This is another boss fight where it's mostly just knowing the patterns for the first couple phases at least, and then when you're trying to blow up this one's head, it just flies around at random. And you have to rely on the homing missiles cooperating with you, which sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. Sometimes homing missiles will fly directly to whatever they're locked onto, and then other times they just fly around in circles. And right now I'm waiting for the hitboxes on the guns on the right side to open up. And the boss fight was
$5 from Dawn of Solace saying, "Make speedrun marathons great again." NASA 20. Thank you very much.
But yeah, for some reason, since we defeated the boss, the enemies just like take us to the exit of the building instead of trying to kill us. I also like the silhouette in the cutscene, and that happens at the end. That happened at the end of the last level too, where Vela just like runs into like this really bright light, and all you can see is a shadow. But this is Lupus. He's a dog that has guns attached to his back and jetpacks attached to his feet. Pretty much the perfect pet. What they're discussing is this ship is where all of the enemy invasion ships come from. It shoots out a bunch of little pods that are full of enemies onto the different planets in the galaxy, and so they plan to infiltrate it and figure out what's going on. So the ship starts taking off, and fortunately, since Lupus has jetpacks on his feet, he's able to actually access the ship. My ammo's actually looking really good for after that boss fight. So we just have Lupus's segment left before everybody convenes on Mizar's Palace, which is like the halfway point-ish. It's kind of where like Act 2 of the game starts, because it starts out really linear, and then where each character just has to go from the beginning of a level to the end, and then they progress to the next one. And then after you fight Mizar for the first time, the game opens up, and you're able to go to whichever planet you want with whichever character you want, which means that you're able to access areas that you couldn't previously, as each character kind of has their own special ability. Lupus is that he's able to hover across gaps, Vela can swim underwater, and Juno can walk on lava. So there's places that each character is able to reach that the other ones can't. And there's usually something that you have to get in all of those places. I thought I could get that. And unfortunately, this game's pretty well put together as far as things not being easy to exploit. A lot of the places that allow you to get out of bounds are done with Lupus because he's able to hover. So if you can find like a way to get to a high place, you can usually hover somewhere to get out of bounds and then kind of run along the boundary to reach the end of either a room or a zone. And usually all the places that have easy ways to get out of bounds are places that Lupus can't reach because it's either blocked off by lava or requires you to go underwater to get to it. And there's a couple places that you can go out of bounds in a run, but unfortunately none of them really benefit a speed run. And Lupus's early levels are probably the most fun to play, and are also, unfortunately, the shortest. As the last one is already over, and this one you only have to kill one set of enemies to actually progress through the entire level. It's mostly just running. Even though there's a lot of enemies in the level, none of them require you to actually kill them. So Lupus has all of his weapons except for tri-rocket launchers at this point, and he gets them once we pass through the door at the end of this room. This level also slows the frame rate way down because there's a lot of enemies at any given point, and just a lot of stuff going on. So it does get pretty close to slideshow speed, especially in the next area. Waiting on those flying drones to actually hit the ground. Alright, so we've got all of Lupus's weapons now. And this area is basically just running in the most optimized lines possible and trying to get pressure boosts off of running into enemies, which I got a little bit of one there. Unfortunately, like when you actually get a pressure boost off someone, you don't really get any control over the direction you're going anymore, as it just like pushes you in the direction you were already running. So occasionally it'll just throw you up against a wall. which isn't particularly helpful. Yeah, mostly just running past everyone there. And then grabbing that capacity crate. Before heading off to Lupus's last level before the palace. And probably the most fun level in the game. Yeah, so this game was also released on Rare Replay for the Xbox One, and the frame rate never drops in that version, and it feels like a completely different game because of how fast everything's moving. Like, it seems like the enemies are given speed boosts based off of how different it is. I'm surprised that tribal didn't get shot.
I know with DK64 and other Rareware games, they have like programming workarounds for like slower speeds of lag. Is there anything like that with the Rare Replay where it's like it doesn't really work how it's supposed to?
With Rare Replay, it just like runs it either 30 or 60 FPS constantly. So when they were, I guess, probably like playtesting this game, when they first developed it, they didn't really have a way of running it at that speed. And so the speed that the enemies move in the N64 version is totally manageable, and you can keep up with where they're going, but when the frame rate's not there to slow them down, and it kind of happens on emulator as well, they just take off and like zip around the screen.
One thing I've been curious about, but I was never able to like see anyone test it, is it like developer kits for N64 or other older tools like that? Would they have less lag? Would those be like the ideal speed things? But like they cost like $1,000, but maybe they're faster.
I don't know. I don't even know how I could get my hands on one of those, but it would be interesting. But there are a couple levels. Go ahead.
I've only ever seen dev kits on eBay occasionally that are over $1,000, sometimes like 10 for certain consoles.
Jeez. Yeah, there are a couple levels in this game where, for some reason, the frame rate never really slows down. Whether it's just because there's not a whole lot going on or whatever reason, but it seems like those levels that the enemies are programmed to move faster, but it's actually just like them not having a really, really slow frame rate. It can actually even affect how much damage you take from explosions if the frame rate is below a certain speed. Because on emulator, especially with the falling speed of enemies, of the flying ones, they don't really get slowed down, and there's a death warp right at the beginning of the game that relies on you standing under falling enemies as they explode when they collide with the ground. And they don't do nearly as much damage on emulator just because I guess the explosions don't last as long, even though that doesn't seem like it makes sense since it's still frame by frame. This next room, and then there's a room immediately following it that has a key that we need to progress to the end of this level. There's 5 different colored keys, red, yellow, blue, green, and magenta. This one's the magenta key. The red and blue, or the red and yellow keys and the blue key, there's more than one place or only show up on one particular level apiece. And unfortunately, 2 characters need it to get through the entire game. So there's no way of see if that... But I think this boss fight it's definitely the hardest one out of the first 3, and took a lot of people a while to beat until they like either figured out the pattern or got really lucky in fighting them. I think the main reason is that a lot of times you run out of ammo for the weapons that are actually good against them, and then you just have to like tank their attacks until you're able to shoot them down with either the pistol or with Floyd. But yeah, this tribal that's on the little island in the lava doesn't actually exist. He shows up he shows up in the cutscene after the boss fight, but then once you regain control of Lupus, he's nowhere to be found, and he doesn't count towards the total for the level. He is a figment of our collective imagination. And hopefully we one-cycle everything in this fight. that's the goal. Alright, one more hand, and then we blow off their tails. Maybe. Still one more hand. Alright, now for the faces. Being able to one cycle their faces is kind of just dependent on the trajectory of the tri-rocket launcher. Since it's a weapon that shoots 3 rockets that kind of spiral around each other along a straight line, and it's RNG based on like where they actually start their trajectory and where they'll be as far as like how they're spinning when they actually hit the enemy. So it's dependent on the way that they show up, or the way that they're spinning when they actually hit them in the face. Okay, so now we've done the starter levels for each character, and now they're all going to meet up on Mizar's Palace to presumably take him down, but unfortunately come to find out that he's able to throw himself into space and escape. Spoiler alert, in case anyone was anxious to see what happens. And Mizar's Palace is basically a cutscene marathon, so hopefully everybody enjoys exposition. Okay, I got him all. Cutscenes are the best part of speedrunning. I mean, for a 3.5-hour run, having a couple cutscenes around the middle is nice, because it lets you get up and stretch your legs. But when it adds an extra hour to the run, it's not quite as nice. So Lupus gains night vision goggles for this segment for some reason. They're never used again, and there's not really any reason to have them here. Other than, I guess it makes this bit a little bit more interesting as you play through it, but this hallway's actually, like, the walls are white. and all the character models are able to be seen. It just adds a green tint over everything. Just blew himself up with a grenade. Lupus is also the only character that lands on a different part of the palace. Juno and Vela land in the same place, but they go through different entrances, since one of them is just a door and the other one requires you to swim to it. Okay, so this is the first Floyd mission in a 90% run. Since we put this robot together, we might as well use them. We have to call down a pyramid by collecting Triforce pieces. It never really gets explained why this calls down a pyramid, or why we have to collect them, or what these things even actually are. They're just there. But the main bad guy in the game lives inside this pyramid, apparently. And decides to land it in the middle of his palace. The only way that you can get inside of it is through doors that are designated for each character with their logo on them. So apparently Mizar, the main villain, made a secret base that is only accessible to the people that are out to destroy him. Because logic. Makes perfect sense if you don't think about it. You can also seam walk up sides of the pyramid until you get about halfway up, and then there's an invisible wall that prevents you from actually reaching the top. But we'll run Lupus in there first. And then Vela will be next, and then Juno will be the last one. So it kind of goes in reverse order of when we unlocked the characters. It's also weird because, like, the characters land on these teleportation pads and get zapped off somewhere, but it's never really explained where they go or why it required them to go into a pyramid to get there. So many unanswered questions in this game. So we are going to be using Vela next. However, I want to skip the cutscene of her landing on the pyramid, or landing on the palace. So I switched to Juno, and then switch to her from the map screen, which allows me to skip this cutscene. And that's something that's exclusive to the Japanese version. Oop, just barely dodged a grenade. Also, I don't know where these bubbles are coming from, but there's a lot of them. That's supposed to be like an underwater maze, but basically the way that you get through it the fastest, or like the easiest way to reach the exit is to just swim in almost a straight line and not pay attention to the fact that it's supposed to be a maze. But her palace scene is basically the most anticlimactic, or one of the most anticlimactic parts of the run, is she just kind of like walks through it. Okay, so we just need to put one more character in the pyramid. And Juno actually gets to like go through the main entrance into the palace. However, like, even though he just like walks through the main entrance of supposedly the biggest, baddest dude in the galaxy's lair. I don't have to kill a single enemy to get him to the boss. It's just running. Like, there's all these enemies in here. And they just let me by. There's actually a life force door in this room. However, the only thing that has behind it are capacity upgrades for weapons that we neither have nor need. So instead of getting those, we're gonna jump down here and break both of Juno's legs. And then just walk it off. So I don't have to kill anyone in here, but I am gonna blow up this guy so that he doesn't respawn directly in front of me when I walk back out of here. These two. Then there's two more in a room up ahead, and then two in a room that's full of lava. These guys are just standing here. I guess they're in shock that I managed to infiltrate their hideout, so they don't bother shooting at me or doing anything. And Juno gets to run basically like all the way around the pyramid to get to his entrance, because why would they put the entrances near where the characters actually come out of the palace? Okay, I'm gonna hop up for just a second during this cutscene. Okay, so we get to witness one of the main characters getting absolutely destroyed. Hey, thanks for the good luck. No, I ran out of beer like right as the run was starting. So unfortunately, no more beer popping. Okay, so we just had this long, drawn-out cutscene leading into a boss fight with the biggest, baddest dude in the galaxy. And come to find out, he's a total puss. The Super Bowl gold can? What is it, like you get a gold can and it's like a ticket, you get a free ticket or something to the Super Bowl? He's like, these guns aren't gonna work. Oh shit! $50, that's a lot of Super Bowl tickets. There was this one time when Oreo did some sort of thing where cookie part, you won like $1 million. And I have a friend that swore, like he swears on his life, that he got one of those Oreos that won the prize and ate it before he realized. So what we're finding out here is that Mizar is super pissed off off into space and collides with an asteroid and is now headed directly toward Earth because he wants to blow it up. And so we have to go catch up with him and somehow like steer the asteroid away from the Earth. However, our ship gets destroyed and we no longer have warp drive capabilities, so we have to repair this like super old ship that's being made by the tribals who
It's because the way I'm capturing. You'll need to just reset the stream again.
Okay. Tribals who
It's because the way I'm capturing. You'll need to just reset the stream again.
Okay. Jetpacks and a tank, and our characters are able to access any level that we've already been to. So we're going to start out with Juno and run into this smaller pyramid. Oops. Do ourselves a little bit of transformation for some reason into a drone. There's a couple places where you can do this in the game, whether it's just sneak past enemies or access areas that the main characters aren't supposed to be able to reach. And Juno will always turn into a green drone and Bela will always turn into a blue one. And unfortunately, Lupus can't turn into one at all. But we're going to use our disguise to steal this pod racing car. This game was actually built off of the code for Diddy Kong Racing, and because of that, they're able to include a pod racing minigame in it. There's also a recreation of Greenwood Village that you can unlock for multiplayer in this game. And the power-ups are pretty similar to the ones in Diddy Kong Racing, where blue gives you boost, red is a bomb instead of like a missile, and then green is oil slicks. And we don't really care about anything other than the boosts. And I'm going to say this is a 124.50. Maybe like a 124.20. Oh wow, that was actually a lot faster than I thought it was. That is a good question. And one I do not have an answer for.
Well, the hovering pods, there's like a temperature gradient above which they're floating, and the oil could be at a very different temperature than the ground, and it could cause like a fluctuation in the, system that causes it to float.
Pretty good explanation. Probably put more thought into explaining that than the developers did in creating it in the first place. So this level is called Passageway, and it's called that because it is essentially a series of very long passageways. It's one of the very few places in the game where you actually fill up your jetpack, or can fill up your jetpack all the way. And drones in this game spawn relative to your height. And this is one of the places where that actually matters. If you saw that that green drone that was in front of us, just like falling below the level, it's because I'm hovering so low that his spawn point is lower than it normally is. And so he just falls to his death into space. I don't need nearly as much fuel in here just because all I have to do is run across and then hover over a wall. And then basically the same thing in here, although it's just like flying up to the top of this cylinder thing. And one of the tribals up here is way bigger than almost all the other ones in the game. There's one or two others that are that size. So the only reason that we come back here is to get a couple tribals, and then there's also Midge, who's this little dude, and he's going to give us a spaceship part. Oops. Almost forgot which room I was in. And now we begin the long journey back. Unfortunately, you can't just pause and exit a level. Once you've saved all the tribals, you actually have to reach an exit point for it to register that you've collected them all. One left. I like how Floyd, the robot that flies behind you, like, if you jump, he'll ascend and descend with you instead of just like flying in a straight line. Okay, this place is called Depository, and it's another maze-like level. And it's also one of the places where the game's frame rate drops to single digits. And then suddenly it just like gets back to normal once you pass a certain spot. And ideally, in getting through this area fast, the main thing is that Juno doesn't grab any of the ledges as you jump up and save tribals. As it wastes maybe a second each time. Baby's just like staring off into space somehow, like not being affected by the lack of gravity. This planet's called Walkway and has like one of the biggest lens flares I've ever seen.
J.J. Abrams would be proud.
Yeah, you don't quite get to see it as you're running towards the level, but like as you start running back, it like moves back and forth in the background. get the homing missiles. Juno's the only one that gets them after Mizar 1. Don't know what those tribals are doing in the sewers, but I'm not gonna use tri rockets because I don't accidentally kill myself. My health's getting a little bit low. Okay, now for the lens flare. And unfortunately, this is one of the cutscenes that we actually have to watch, so... Okay, so this is the first place that Juno goes to on a previous level that he couldn't access before, so that we can run through some lava. It's also where he gets like most of his... Oops. Let me just reload this real fast. Where he gets most of his capacity upgrades. Both for homing missiles and for tri-rockets. Like, he gets 20 capacity for each one. That's what I meant to do. I guess they thought that all of these weapon upgrades were safe, considering how you have to run through lava to get to them, but they did not consider the fact that one of us has so much armor plating on his feet that somehow he's able to just walk through lava. Hopefully these tribals don't get hit by whatever these guys throw. It happens like 1 out of 100 times, but it's a bitch when it actually happens. Do a little bit of damage, because I'm going to do a death ward coming up. This is actually a place where it's really hard not to just get trigger happy and accidentally kill one of the tribals. Like if you're not paying really close, or not necessarily really close attention, but not paying attention to which door you're actually opening. I've ended probably more runs than I'm willing to admit. Accidentally just blowing one of these guys up. And the reason we had to kill all of them is so that we could unlock that door. Okay, so this is the last level for Juno until the very last one. And we're actually going to get to see all of this level since we skipped most of it. Using basically the only sequence break this game has when we first came here. That means that he's still alive. Running into the lava. Oops. So normally you have to run to the very back of the room to get up onto this platform using a ramp, but if you jump on that barrel, you can actually reach the ledge to grab it. So those two tribals are the first reason why we couldn't do everything in this level the first time we came here, and then this next area is the other reason, because we need to use our jetpacks to get to a few of these guys. Just shoot that guy because he's in the way. One of my cats just sneezed, like directly in front of the microphone. I'm not really sure what the purpose of this room would be in an actual ship. It's just like a really long, a really tall cylinder. And I also have no idea how these tribals managed to get up here. Okay, so we basically made a lap around the entire level. And we've gotten all the tribals except for 2. And as we make our way to the hidden exit, we'll be running into the other 2 tribals. He's just like using a stone hammer on a spaceship, which is kind of dumb. But somehow this like species has put together an ancient spaceship, despite them living in like stone and wooden huts. Somehow they managed.
Next, like slow point in the, like when you have a bit of cut, like a cutscene or something. Reset the stream just so we do it before it starts getting choppy.
Okay, yeah, I've got a cutscene actually like right now. I'm trying to think if there's a cutscene at like right at the. Okay, so we're done with Juno until the last level. And I guess we're about to progress through what's probably the most difficult parts of the game in a casual playthrough, because we're going to be going to the most end level area, or in-game levels of the game with Bela. Where the enemies have better weapons and more health. After we go talk to our friend with no pants underneath the island. All we have to worry about here are these guys. 72. Oh my god, one of my cats is like directly in front of the TV. There it goes. So yeah, we went and found this guy's pants up in the trees, and he has neglected to put them on, so we're gonna demand that he give us a spaceship part for his indecency. Alright, so we blew open this worm's mouth with Lupus so that we don't have to like stand here and wait for him to let us in with Vela. Oh, you're still alive? One more set of flying drones, and then one more set of dudes on the ground. Okay, I mainly just didn't want to die there. I needed to conserve homing missiles for this room. Alright, the door open. Oop, and the cat that was in front of my TV screen just fell off the desk. He's not very coordinated. So we're running through the brain of this giant worm that takes up most of this planet. Probably, well, I guess he's already dead, technically. We're running through it like shooting glass panes and running into other species that are just like hanging out in his brain. So this is probably the most difficult trick in the speed run. We avoid having to wait on a platform to go all the way around the room by strafe running. Ah, I didn't get to it. It's pretty precise. Hopefully I can get the backup. Or not. I'll just try the main trick again. But ideally, you're able to jump onto the platform as it's coming towards you and then be close enough to where you can manage to jump to the platform that it's coming from. And the only way that it's possible is by moving faster than the game intends for you to by strafe running, and you can keep that momentum. She's just not cooperating. I'll give it one more try, and then otherwise I'll just wait for the platforms to move around the room. But you can, if you time it just right and position it just right, you don't have to rely on her grabbing a ledge. But a lot of times it does come down to whether or not... There we go. It does come down to whether or not her character actually wants to grab the ledge, which sometimes she does and sometimes she doesn't. For some reason, and it's only with her, it's really finicky on whether or not she'll actually grab a hold of it. Sometimes she will when you don't think she does, and sometimes when it should be guaranteed that she holds on to the ledge, she'll start pulling herself up and then just fall. Without any real rhyme or reason. And with these pillars, you're supposed to have to go back outside and hover back up on top of the worm and then fall back in, but again, with strafe running, you have enough momentum to just launch yourself from one pillar to the other and get both of them without having to actually leave. So it saves a pretty nice chunk of time. Alright, now I don't really have to worry about health through here because I can get max health on that gem if I really want it, but Vela does a death warp in one of the upcoming rooms, so there's not really a reason to have a lot of health. I'm actually going to take a little bit of intentional damage. So I have 3 tri-rockets, and I'm going to take damage from lava for the death warp, so I should be totally set for health, regardless of how much damage I take here. Assuming I don't get killed. Alright, all good on damage. And we're going to be doing a death warp to get out of this part because it takes a really long time to swim all the way back from the very end of it. And I don't know what we're actually swimming in because this is supposed to be inside of a giant worm. I can't remember if it's the first item that we grabbed in here or the second one, but one of them is a porno mag that we trade for a key. Okay, grab these two, and we're out. Don't have to swim all the way back. I just need to make sure that I kill 2 flying drones in this room because they have a likelihood of killing the last 2 tribals on this level. And if any tribal dies, you have to reload the level and do the whole thing over again. Because the tribals that you save isn't cumulative, you have to do it all at once. Which is a terrible mechanic, but there's not really anything that can be done about it at this point other than find some way to skip the tribals. So if you're someone who enjoys looking for ways to break games, I strongly encourage you to take a look at this one, because it's a speedrun that could definitely use some breaking. Okay, so Vela actually comes back here because she does need the key that she was supposed to get on this level before. But we have a much easier way of getting to it. Since we have the key from the previous level. And I mentioned before, you can skip dialogue with NPCs by hitting the A button on the frame that the dialogue opens up, and this is the most important NPC to get that with. As he has like 8 or 9 boxes of text that you have to scroll through. But instead we just immediately skip straight to the end. This part of the level is kind of weird because at different depths, it's possible to both swim and run in water. And so if you can find the right spots, it's faster to run than it is to swim. There we go. Alright, but there's no tribals to save here, so we can just peace out. just about every area that we're going to either needs a blue key, which we got to by swimming, or requires us to swim to get there, or to do something on that level. So here we have to swim to get down into this part of the level to grab that spaceship part. And then back on Goldwood, we need to swim to get to Goldwood Lodge, which is one of the, I guess, most difficult levels in a casual playthrough, because it has enemies that take a lot of hits and there's not a whole lot of ammo for you to just run around and pick up. And the only drone we need to kill here is that guy. So what can make this part hard is Vela hasn't had an opportunity to get a whole lot of, especially machine gun capacity upgrades. 300 is enough for this part, but ideally you would want something like 500 capacity, as well as a full capacity of tri-rockets. But there's a couple convenient ammo drops throughout the level. So we get homing missiles there. Hopefully these guys just clump up. Was the machine gun ammo that we just picked up. And that opens this door. Something bad that can happen in this area is these 3 flying drones in particular. Sometimes when you shoot them with machine gun, they won't blow up in the air. They'll fall to the ground and then explode when they hit the ground. And they're hovering, or they're flying directly over some tribals. So if you shoot them with a machine gun or like a pistol or something, there's a chance that they'll fall straight down and just blow up on the tribals and kill them. Okay, so this is the second part of Lodge. These are the toughest just general enemies in the game. They can take more tri-rocket shots to kill than some of the bosses. The only place that they have any like hitbox is their faces. Okay. Oh, he's not dead yet. That drone just like randomly... I guess he pulled a grenade. I'm not really sure what happened there. Okay, so now we just have to clear this room to get to the Life Force door that leads to the exit.
Next slow moment, reset the stream again.
Okay, I've got a cutscene coming up actually. Okay. Alright, so we'll actually be coming back to this level as Lupus because it's easier to do it quickly with him than it is with either of the human characters. We're gonna go all up. Ooh, yeah, okay. I wanted to make sure that I got that gun. Alright, that got all of them, it looks like. No? Oh. One just wasn't dead yet. them all in that room too. Those drones can be kind of sneaky because they blend in with the background pretty well. And I don't need to worry about anyone in this room. I just need to walk through the door. Okay, one ammo drop. There's a small chance that those last two tribals could have gotten killed. Occasionally they get shot. But not this time. This area is called the Ascent. Oh my god, please stop targeting the dead body in front of me. And down he goes. Okay, that drone committed suicide. For some reason, if you jump onto a certain part of that platform, that drone will just jump off the cliff. Sometimes I've had him like land. Most of the time he just like jumps to his death, but every once in a while he'll get stuck on the wall of the cliff about halfway down, and there's no way that you can kill him. And you can't continue through the level until he dies. This room is the grenade funnel room because there's a bunch of tribals standing at the bottom of a funnel shape. And there's enough drones in here for the likelihood of one of them throwing a grenade to be pretty high. Fortunately, we were lucky. And somehow we also like warp back to the start of the level. So the porno magazine that we got earlier, we're gonna trade to this guy for a key that lets us into the mines, where there's a shitload of tribals. Oops. This place can be difficult to maneuver when you're like first starting out speedrunning this game, because to strafe run you have to hold the control stick at a weird angle, which makes making turns kind of difficult, and the hallways are pretty narrow. So it's a place where you might end up like scraping up against the walls quite a bit. Oops, like that. Mostly because if you strafe run, you have a much harder time telling where you're actually going to be going. I need a little bit more. Alright, a few more tribals, and then we also turn into a tribal and get a spaceship part done here. And we make that transformation here. And here there's an elevator that we can activate to get back up to that top part of the platform, but it's faster to just drop down and respawn at the start. Talk to this guy. He's gonna give us a spaceship part because he doesn't know that we're actually a Jet Force member. He wants this tribal to go hide it somewhere in the mines. Not paying attention to the fact that the tribal's running around with a machine gun in her hand. Okay, so we are done with the mine. Fortunately, we don't actually have to transform back into a human. It'll automatically happen if we warp out of the level. Alright, setting up for a death warp. It saves us from having to like run back and forth through that room. So the reason that we couldn't get all the tribals here with Lupus is, one, we need a green key to get in here. And we're also going to be doing a little bit of swimming. Which means Vela is the only person that can get all of the tribals here. Ooh, that was close. Okay, one more level with Vela. Okay, so this is the only reason that we get the sniper rifle in the first place. And that is to shoot these guys. This guy's like booking it. I'm not too concerned about how much health I have because I am going to be doing a death warp in just a little bit, so these guys can shoot me all they want. But they're also stormtroopers, so the likelihood that they'll even hit me is pretty low. These guys actually have a pretty good chance of hitting me since they're shooting machine guns. So we can turn into a drone here if we so desired. It makes it to where all the drones up at this next part don't shoot at us, but it also doesn't really matter if they do or not. Especially when we can just do this. Oh, that didn't get both of them. Okay, so there's one more tribal that we just get on our way out. It's not really like out of the way at all. And just running back through here. Managed to run right next to all of those guys and still not get shot by any of them. Bunch of champs. Okay, and switch to Lupus as we do the last couple levels with him. And I don't really care about the tribals on this level now because I've already saved them. Where'd this guy go? Is he still over here? Is he really not dead yet? Okay, there we go. here. Okay, so we're heading to the next Floyd mission that we need to do to get a pair of earplugs that we're going to be trading for a spaceship part. I don't know why you win earplugs for doing a Floyd mission, but that's what happens. These cockroaches are probably the most annoying enemies in the game. Because you have to kill them to get past them, because they just block the path. So I need to get 6 of these circuit boards and then shoot a couple targets. Last one over here. And we're out. And this is one of really only 2 levels, I would say, that Lupus has to focus on after Mizar 1. The other one being Goldwood Rim. Oh my gosh, that was a lot of lag caused by that one grenade. As this level has the most tribals that you have to save that can actually die. Rithessa Mine has the most, but there's no enemies in that part of the game. Really? There we go. Should be one more. Alright, I gotta be a little bit careful in this room because these tribals can get killed relatively easily. And this one. So a lot of the platforming in this level is so much easier with Lupus because you can just hover everywhere. This room has a pretty interesting hovering trick though, because there's some flying platforms that you can use to get to the other side. And if you time it right, you don't have to like wait on anything to get over there. But the return trip's a little bit more difficult. Ah, I just barely fell off. Oh well. You don't lose that much time with the backup strat. Alright, now we just have to clear this last door, and then we can get out of here. I think all these guys live. Holy shit. I was hoping to just use homing missiles and then maybe like 1 or 2 tri-rockets. But unfortunately, like most of those enemies on the ground decided that they wanted to live. I'm going to take quite a bit of intentional damage here. And that is it for that level. And this level is basically just grabbing the 8 tribals and then getting a spaceship part from a giant bear. Namely this guy. Do a quick death warp to get back to the start. And get this tribal hiding over here. And I'm gonna reset my stream Alright, so as I mentioned, this level's a little bit faster with Lupus compared to either of the human characters. So these drones seem like they're ridiculously fast, but it's actually just because the frame rate is really good in this level. See if I hit all the cycles right. Almost. Not quite, though. Okay. The next level is a place where just about every tribal can get killed, unfortunately. It's also the last place that really has like a big amount of tribals in it. So every character actually has like a Goldwood segment that they have to do. Juno does his basically like as the introductory level or like the tutorial level. And then for Lupus and Vela, it's like two of the most difficult segments in the game. It's possible to slip past this life force door and get to the exit without having to kill anything through going out of bounds, but it actually takes the exact same amount of time to just do it normally, because the setup to get out of bounds takes quite a bit of time. So I don't really need to worry about ammo for this part. Because at least with machine gun ammo, I'll get full capacity before starting Rim. And with tri-rockets, I can get upwards of 15. You guys just running into that box. Dude died with a grenade in his hand. Okay, now for the actual rim. Whoa, don't start shooting yet, please. I'd really like those tribals to live. Make sure no one ran over there. I could use an ammo drop from at least one of these guys. Or not, or at least not from them. Oh my god, please stop throwing grenades. The auto-targeting in this game, if a drone pulls a grenade or throws one, that immediately becomes what the auto-aim starts shooting at. And if you're shooting at a drone next to a tribal and it pulls a grenade and you blow up the grenade, it kills the tribal 99 times out of 100. I've had a couple miracles where the tribal doesn't die, but it's always a butt punch moment whenever a grenade gets pulled, especially by that particular drone. Or one in here. Oh shit. Could use a little bit more ammo. The only drones that need to be killed are these 3 blue ones. And then this batch of flying ones. And then I need to hurry through this room because there's a guy that will pop out of the ceiling and start throwing grenades at the tribals if I don't get to them in time. That missed completely. Alright, this is the last batch of enemies on room. Hey, get back here. Okay, now for Jim Corey, which is basically a mini game that nobody wants to play. Okay, so the way that this minigame works is you have to shoot gems into a machine as it spins to power it up so that it can shoot the asteroids that are headed toward this planet. The machine will slowly power down if you don't shoot a minimum of 3 gems in it per cycle, and it will only power up if you shoot 4 in. There's a way that we make it to where it only takes 4 cycles of gems, or basically 14 gems, for it to work, by having it suck up the first 8 all at once, so that it basically starts at 8 instead of 4. The gems will eventually disappear. They're on a timer, and there's a little bit of an overlap between when the next 4 spawn and the previous 4 disappear. So far, so good on this one. Please don't fall. Okay, thank you. So you can kill yourself and just sit there dead, and the cutscene will still trigger and it will still count as you actually completing the mission. And when you respawn with full health, so. And I'm gonna reset my... And we had to do that mission because it grants us a spaceship part. So we've gotten all of the extra spaceship parts, and we've saved all of the tribals. So now we just need to go back to Mizar's palace and load them all up and take off for the asteroid. So we switched to Vela here because her route to the pyramid is by far the fastest. Blow that family of tribals up for good luck. And I'm never using Vela after this in the run, so may as well just blow through all of our ammo. We skipped the first conversation with him because he's just like telling us what we already know. This one he gives us the spaceship part, meaning that we actually got all the tribals, and then the last one is him taking us onto the ship. So this is a part of the game that very few people who played it actually ended up seeing, because not many people who played it actually wanted to save all the tribals and get all the spaceship parts. Hey, how's it going, Margothom? I'm gonna stop trying, because I'm probably just gonna find new ways to mispronounce it. Alright, and I'm gonna fall into space so that I can respawn with full health. Okay, time to fight the final boss. I don't understand why Miser doesn't just do that attack constantly. Like, all of his other attacks are super weak. The trick to this fight is basically just knowing where to put the crosshairs and then keeping them there the entire time. And that spot is right here. The way that this fight works is he will charge you 3 times. He does a meteor shower thing, and then he'll charge you and attack the ground right in front of you 3 times, and then he actually does his like main attacks. However, you can one cycle each of those so that he never actually does his main attacks. Oh, he's doing this same attack. Same one 3 times in a row, and unfortunately that's the only one that really does any damage, so I actually have to be careful. Jeez. And he was like 1 hit off too. Wow. There we go. Had to recenter the crosshairs a little bit. Okay, so he shot his wings off. And that's the final boss. So there's one last little bit after this cutscene. But the way that this game ends is we come to find out that Mizar is actually a robot. Not like a actual like creature. And he's piloted by Jeff's brother Barry. So basically, the conflict in this game is that the king of all the tribals was such a dick that his brother decided to commit genocide on species. Which is kind of fucked. Like, that's just really weird. Okay, so all we have left is this Floyd mission, and it's unbelievably easy compared to the other Floyd missions in this game. Because some of them were actually pretty difficult, but this one's just... and you have a really long time to do it. But yeah, so Floyd's basically just flying some dynamite into the middle of it to blow it up. And time will be in 3, 2, 1, time. And that is Jet Force Gemini, aka Star Twins. We managed to save the day. This also has like some of the most weird, interesting credits in video game history, or at least in my memory. But yeah, if you're interested in Jet Force Gemini speedruns, definitely feel free to check out my channel, TV/Caneras SC. This is mostly what I run. Oh, hey, Jimmy. We'll hopefully be running this in May at the actual marathon. I still don't know if that's supposed to actually be, if it's just gibberish that Jeff says. Shoutouts to everyone running the marathon for letting me be a part, and to all of you for tuning in, and especially to those of y'all that have contributed to the funds for making NASA 2017 possible. But that is Force Gemini.
Nice to run, dude. Good work.